Welcome everyone to today's member showcase. Today I am delighted to be joined by Elana Effrat, who successfully completed the DMIPRO dual certificate with the DMI and of course the AMA, the American Marketing Association, in 2020. Elana is based in New York and is currently the Director of Marketing at One Eight Distilling. In her current role, Elana is a team of one, essentially. She is responsible for overseeing both sales, marketing, of course, within the marketing side, there's digital marketing, which we're going to discuss today, and she takes care of both B2B and B2C. Elana has had a diverse career before making the move into digital marketing and marketing, so a bit of a different background and not the typical kind of lead into a digital marketing senior role. So I hope a lot of you find that interesting, but we're very delighted to welcome her to the showcase. Thanks for joining us, Elana.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about my journey.
Great, and we always usually start in the same place. So to kind of kick things off, could you tell us a little bit about you and your career and your background to date?
Sure. Like you said, it's been varied to say the least. I was in the music industry for 15 years and worked in retail, worked for a wholesaler. I used to book bands. I did PR, kind of like a jack of all trades. And then I found myself being disheartened by the music industry and needed a change. So I went into nonprofits for about 2 years, working for a CEO, being a director, working for programming. So kind of a little bit varied in my 2 years of nonprofits. And then the wine and spirits industry found me. And again, kind of jack of all trades. I started off working in retail. I had no background in wine or spirits. I barely knew what red and wine was. So they really took a chance on me. Luckily, the guy who hired me at my first job in the industry also graduated with a degree in music from the same college I did. So I think he took pity on me. And 15 years later, I'm still in this industry, and it's been a lot of fun. I've had experiences in all three tiers of it, meaning I've worked in retail, I've worked in wholesale, I've done some bits as a bartender, cater waiter, and eventually through all of it, now I'm a director of marketing for a small craft distillery. So it's been an interesting path.
It's a very interesting area as well, marketing for a distillery for a number of reasons. Usually when we have people on, they kind of come from almost similar backgrounds. So I was kind of delighted to have you on, specifically to talk about your role as well. But one of the questions that we usually ask people is just around the situation we have at the moment, the kind of unique situation where digital transformation or just digital marketing in general is moving kind of faster than ever the last 2 to 3 years. And I'd just love to get your perspective on how digital transformations are changing marketing in your sector specifically.
It's always a loaded question right now to ask how you've pivoted, but our industry was decimated by the pandemic. All of the bars, restaurants were all shut down. You can no longer shop in a retail space. And while retail sales were up, people were definitely drinking a lot more. Home delivery was up. Retailers, I think it was like an increase of like 200%, something really astronomical, but it was all big brands. So if you were Tito's and Espolon, you were great. But if you're One Eight Distilling, not so great. So a lot of small companies and big companies too, we all had to transition very quickly into a virtual digital space because we can no longer reach our customers, reach the trade, who is our business to business, via our regular channels, which is always, for the most part, is in person.
Yeah.
So,
and is there any specific things that jump to mind in terms of trying to take the live aspect, the in-person aspect, and was it as simple as having webinars, or kind of what adjustments did you kind of have to make?
Well, a big one is for us, especially being a small distillery is liquid to lips, meaning we need to get people to taste our product. And with a tasting room shut down, no more tours and tastings, that's a huge hit for us and getting our name out there. So we had to switch to a fully virtual tasting and tour. We developed these tasting kits where we gave mini samples, like little 50 ml samples, and we put together a whole kit, and then we would have our customers would pick those up, and we would have one of our distillers lead a virtual tour with a group of people while they had their tasting kits. But that all that we didn't do that before, so that was all new. And then we have the added hurdle of we could only reach what's within our reach, because shipping alcohol is very taboo, and we play by the book, so we don't ship spirits. It is, people will tell you it's fine, retailers will ship, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's not legal to ship spirits. So that's a huge hurdle for us.
Yeah, and in terms of some kind of return to normality now, it's different for everywhere, for everyone in every different locations, but is it starting to come back a bit, the kind of processes that you had, or is there some form of normality coming back?
It's very slow. We've seen one of our biggest ways of reaching people to liquid to lips was in-store tastings, and we see that coming back a little bit. But we've also, while we don't have public tours and tastings, we are doing private tours and tastings, so small groups of people. There is a big boom on the other side in home delivery of spirits, companies like Drizzly. We have several here. I don't know what it's like in other countries. Actually, I think the US is probably has some of the strictest alcoholic beverage laws out there. So it's probably way easier to have a drink delivered to your door in Europe than it is in the US. But we had bars who could no longer have customers, so they had to switch to go cocktails, the way that they, reached their customers, the way we would reach them to get them to use our products, in those to-go cocktails. So everything shifted. And now we're seeing there's to-go cocktails are not really a thing anymore, so people are going back out. And it's becoming somewhat normal, but I don't think we're going to see virtual totally go away. It's a great way to reach a lot of people that are not close by.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We hear a lot of people say things like that so there's big adjustments for COVID, and then actually they find that a lot of those things that were almost rushed into place, I'm not saying that you rushed anything into place, but had to be put into place, there's value in them, and they kind of stay on, and they probably live and hang around after COVID. So that's really interesting. And I can confirm that as a birthday present, I received a basket of beer, which would have been ordered online. So
beer is very different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of alcohol, especially here in the US, because it is a controlled substance, where beer and wine, you can ship beer and wine like all over the place, but hard alcohol, people do it all day, every day, but it's not, there are no contracts with FedEx and UPS, USPS, our postal service. It's like you don't even go there with them. It's actually been a huge push for direct to consumer shipping with spirits.
It's a good example of a kind of barrier you realize you have once things change. Kind of staying on the topic of transition, if you like, and moving away from COVID. Just with yourself, I kind of mentioned it before briefly, but you recently moved into your current role, and that brought you into marketing and digital marketing for the first time. What was it like transitioning later in your career, and did you feel that the certification that you did was a help in that?
I'm the kind of person that when I do something, I want to make sure I do it 150%. So for my own, for my own sanity, doing the certification with Digital Marketing Institute and the AMA was essential. I wanted to have as many tools as I could to do the best job I could. And it really laid down groundwork and gave me broad stroke overview. I'm no stranger to social media and content marketing and different aspects of marketing, but this company hired me knowing that this was my first full-time marketing role, and was very upfront with it. And whenever somebody takes a chance, I want to make sure I do a really good job. The last thing I want to do is fail. So I am my own worst critic, and I'm very hard on myself to prove my worth. So it's scary making those kinds of changes, but it's also exciting because you get to learn so much, and being with the right people who allow you to learn and make those mistakes. Hopefully they're not too bad. It's been a really unique journey for me.
And another thing I touched on, and I think it's relevant as well. You kind of mentioned there in your answer, but it's being responsible for things, and actually being a one person team, if you like, in your current role. How do you find working almost on your own? I'm not saying you're completely isolated, but overseeing all these different things like sales and marketing. And do you have any tips for anyone who might be in a similar position, maybe for whatever reason, just the way the company's structured?
Yeah, I mean, luckily we're a small company. I'm the sixth full-time employee there. So we're a small team. So it's a lot of conversation, making sure that we're all on the same page before I do something. But it's challenging juggling a lot of different hats and making sure you are making everybody happy, because it's not just sales, but it's also, we are a venue as well. So it's bringing people into the building and making sure we're getting that across as well. And my biggest advice for people that are kind of a one person show is have a really good, strong network outside of your company, because getting the ability to bounce what you're thinking off of somebody that's not close to it is really important. I wouldn't be where I'm at today, almost a year into this job, without being able to, not just rely on them, but also to rely on my own network to make sure I'm doing the right things. I'm making good decisions.
Yeah, this kind of personal skills helping you develop kind of hard digital marketing skills, if you like. It's really sound advice. And another thing I'd been thinking of in terms of challenges in your role, we spoke before today, and you mentioned a rebrand, and you're working on a rebrand. And I know a lot of people, particularly our members, will find themselves in that situation in a team that's working on a rebrand or responsible for one, and so on. I'm just curious just to see kind of what challenges come with a project like that.
Um, I was thinking a lot about this last night, because on one hand, it's absolutely crazy to go into a new job and be like, we need to do everything over. Um, but at the same time, it's been really great for me to break down every single little nuance of the story, of all the assets, of everything. It was the biggest audit, for a person coming into a role, and really breaking everything down to see what needed to be done. And having somebody from an outside perspective who was close to it, but not close enough to shoot themselves in the foot. One of the things that you run into when you work with a small craft brand, is that there's a joke about microbrewers being the worst at rebranding because they're so close to it. This is their baby. The co-founders of the distillery where I work, they had really great careers and jobs in other industries that they quit to start a distillery, which is volatile. It takes years, if you make a whiskey, for that whiskey to age before you can sell it and hopefully get a return on investment. I mean, it's a huge risk. So when you're that close to something that you you see, touch, make every day, it's very hard to step away from it to make better marketing decisions, because it's not about them, it's about what the customer wants, and that's hard to see when you're so close to it. So that's a big challenge with a rebrand, but we found a really great creative agency that has been holding our hands, and I'm very excited where we are now. And now the real hard part comes is where we have to change everything over. And we are only a team of 6, so it's all hands on deck for a rebranding, and it's not going to happen as fast as it would in some other places.
So you manage both the B2B and the B2C aspects of the business. How do you find the two differ? And for your particular company, is one more difficult than the other, or is there any kind of big differences in general, any kind of challenges?
I was thinking also about this a lot last night, and I was having a good laugh about it, because when you're a brand and you need to have this really healthy balance of marketing to both the trade and to consumers, your target audience. Both are your target audience, but they have different roles in your business plan. So we want to get to the decision makers at bars, at restaurants, at retail spaces, because you need your product in those spaces, so that when you are targeting your audience, they have a place to go and buy the thing. So if you don't do both at the same time, you have really annoyed customers because you're not giving them a good experience. They're excited to buy your product, and you're making it extremely difficult for them to go buy it if it's not on shelves. And I was thinking a lot about this last night, because I've seen instances where the decision makers and the movers and shakers in the industry, if they don't know about a product, then they get mad at you because you didn't tell them that there was something cool going. And then you've got the stores that won't bring in product unless people are asking for it. So it's a very strange world, and I don't know how it is in other packaged goods where if there's so many emotions involved in it, but because it's not just like your decision makers at your bars and restaurants, but it's also we have a 3-tiered system. So it's the middle people, the distributors, the wholesalers, and their salespeople that we have to market to. We got to get them on board. We have to get as many people on board as possible to tell your story, but all at the same time. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
It seems like this kind of circular problem where you have to almost have, yeah. So I can imagine it gets frustrating, but challenges
But
like that.
in different ways, because like at least the trade is very targeted. We know exactly who we need to speak to. Hopefully we know who to speak to, and the methods are kind of the same, but it's different places, different magazines, different journalists. There's more internal, places for advertising and conversations when it comes to the trade. It's also a lot more hands-on work, trying to bring people in, really get them to connect, versus with your general consumers. That's very broad stroke. We don't, when you put something out there, you don't know exactly where it's going to go a lot of times. Digital marketing, it's a lot nicer because we can be very specific, which is what's so nice about digital marketing. But it's thinking about it, like when I'm putting up a post, I'm like, okay, well, people from the trade gonna like this? Like, is this gonna, are regular people gonna get what I'm saying? So it's about like how you talk to them as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, different kind of tones of voices and things like that. Um, I guess we're kind of coming now to some of the questions I kind of ask everyone, and it's just to get some insights into your own opinion on things, and hopefully people can learn from, and it's just for perspective and things. But maybe for more kind of junior members that we have, or people starting their career that might be watching this or watching it back, Could you tell us a little bit about what you think are the most important factors in career development, and not necessarily specific to digital marketing, just kind of in general, what have you found?
Um, the number one thing is relationships, never burning bridges, really cultivating relationships, not just for growth in your industry, but personal growth as well. Really getting those champions to be on your side, because you're not going to stay in the same career forever. You're going to move around, and skills are transferable. And it's good to get different backgrounds, because when you go into a different industry or trade, you bring a different perspective. One of the beautiful things about being in the spirits industry, at least when I got into it, it there were very few people that were there are very few people that grew up in it. It's more like kind of you find it later on, where now there are more people that are growing into the wine and spirits industry. They're going to school for it. They're graduating. They're knowing specifically that this is an industry they want to be in. And before that, it was a small percentage of people that knew that this was going to be what they were going to be when they grew up. So it's kind of like Elana misfit toys a lot of times, which is really fun, because we do have a lot of different backgrounds, and a lot of creative people. A majority of people I know in the business came from music, actually.
It's
So,
really interesting.
you never know like where skill's going to take you. So just don't think like whatever job you have, pay attention, because nothing is dismissal for is up for dismissal. Like all of those things can be transferred to other things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. In terms of a standout moment or professional accomplishment in your career, is there anything that kind of jumps to mind, something that you've done that you've maybe been quite proud of, say?
um this whole this industry's been really wonderful for me to work in. Within my first few months of being hired just to like kind of run back a house of a store, I was taking classes. I was going to France to learn about wine. I was in Burgundy, and I was up on Alpe d'Huez. So there's been so many moments of really amazing things that have happened to me in the last 15 years in this industry. And I've had some really great career moments. I was thinking a lot about it, because I feel very spoiled by this industry. It's been just so rewarding. I try and woo everybody into it, just because my experience has been so great. But like in 2018, I was invited to be a part of a membership called La Dame d'Escoffier, which is a all women group for hospitality, beverage, and culinary industries. It's been around for over 40 years. It's an international group. You have to be voted in. You can't just like pay a fee and belong. Like you have to go through that. So that was a really unique opportunity. But then there were these other moments where when I was working for a distributor, it was specifically a wine distributor. Wine was in the name, and I was spirits, and spirits we were always put in the corner, and I got angry over the years that we were always in the corner. And it took about 5 years, 4.5 years, but eventually I got them to put "and spirits" at the end of their name. So that was like for me, a huge win. And now it's coming in different ways, like seeing when this rebranding is done, is going to be seeing the reactions that people have to it. But I'm still a judge for American Distilling Institute, and judge craft spirits. And I just got asked to like go to Belgium tomorrow to judge spirit at an international competition. So those things have been kind of like, okay, I'm in this industry. Cool.
Sounds really, really rewarding. You're selling it to me here as well.
Come on
So
board. We love it.
just around the most kind of valuable advice you've been given in your career, I ask everyone, but is there something that stands out as a piece of advice, or even maybe a person who kind of constantly gave you advice that kind of helped you along or made an impression of some kind?
Uh, you know, I was thinking a lot about this question too. Before, when I used to work with suppliers and they would come, that's the biggest thing when you are working at a distributor. Brands want to come in, they want to work the market, they want to like see everything and do everything. And my grandmother had a very good sense of humor. She used to tell me that in-laws were like fish. After 3 days, they go bad. And so I used to tell my suppliers this when they were coming into the market. Um, but I mean that's like a funny one. But probably the best piece of advice is to be careful what you say to people. Make sure it's thought through, especially when going online, voicing your opinion. Like, who are you saying that to, and why are you saying it? Try not to talk bad about your competition, because the person you're saying that to might really like that competition. And so just kind of like bite your tongue with opinions a lot, unless you're in a very safe space, because those things can come around to haunt you.
Cool. And finally, just before we wrap up, is there anything at all, doesn't have to be career related, but anything interesting, fact or anything about yourself that you can tell us about?
Well, earlier on, I said that I'm a little bit of an overachiever. I like to do things, 150% right. So I have found that in later on in life, I absolutely obsessed with ice skating and now roller skating, and I'm very slow at learning it. I wouldn't say I'm awful, but like it's a challenge. And it's probably the one thing I've stuck with that I'm really not truly that great at. And now I'm trying to skate almost every day. So, so I try and get people out there too to join me, because it's not always, you can get very sucked into this industry and it's very hard to separate yourself from it. Like, you find yourself always out at bars, being with people, like, so having that to go
Nice.
away is,
A nice outdoor activity, balance it out. Yeah,
yeah, especially during a pandemic, it's been essential. So
yeah, that's excellent. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today. It's a very interesting background and career. I think a lot of people will find it really helpful. So I really appreciate you coming to speak with us, Elena.
it was very fun. If anybody wants to come on to this dark side of it, I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm here to look at resumes and pull out those skill sets that are needed to come to this side of the business.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you very much, Elena. Really
Thank
nice
you so
speaking to you.
much.